Okay, this is the last little bit, the final few sewings, and then the sewing in end to beginning. So I'm just going to, when you come to this section, you'll notice that we've got I'm just taking the pin out. We've got a pin here on the outside which doesn't have a line. Be very careful of that you're not making a sewing into that. You need to go into the one where it's got a line only. If you go into that one, then it's going to throw your line of work out, and when you get to the end it'll all be uneven and you'll have either extra or not enough pinholes on one side. So I'll just do this sewing. Again, as I said earlier, you'll have a cover cloth, and your cover cloth will just help to lift this away from the pins so that your threads shouldn't catch on the pins like mine are, because your cover cloth will just give you that little bit of height to make sure that your threads are clearing the top of the pinholes. So this bit, as you can see, we're just sewing in on one side, then working across and sewing in on the other side. So your tensioning is all coming when you're making the sewings. So this is the last but one. Using my nails again instead of my lifting tool. So this is where we started on the first video. We had a pinhole here that was very snug, so it's not this one, it's actually the one tucked behind. So I'm going to see if I can zoom in. Oops, sorry. So we're looking to work into this one here, which if I take it out you can actually see the bar. That one there that's just in front of it, I'm just going to angle that the other way, that will be the one for sewing in to finish. So we'll do 2 twists, sew into that bar, and then 2 twists after, and this will come back to sew into that pinhole. So we now have our initial 3 pins where we started the lace, and that's where we're going to sew into. Let's put that in the middle so we can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first pinhole out on the first pin out on the left. And that pinhole, we've got 1 loop there, which was the 2 pairs. It was the first passive and it was the worker. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the first passive pair and I'm going to sew that into that pinhole. Trying not to get my hook stuck completely in the pillow. Now I will be tying that off, but I'm not going to do that just for the moment. I'm just going to gently lay that back, because if I tie that off and pull it tight, I'm going to pull that little loop closed and we won't be able to get to it at all for the other pair. So I'm now going to sew in the worker into the same hole, in that same loop. So it's a little bit tight because you've already got one sewing into it. bit of a wiggle. Come on. Don't rush this, take your time, because you don't want to split that thread. There it is. So that's now our worker and our first passive are sewn into that hole. So now we can tie these off. So we're going to tie them a reef knot and a half. So that's, let's zoom out so you can see that. So that's right over left and under the left thread, left over right and under the right thread, and right over left and under the left thread. Lay that over there. Bring in the other pair, which is the passive. Give it a gentle tug to make sure it's nice and snug. And again, we'll tie a reef knot and a half. So right over left, under the left thread, left over right, under the right thread, and right over left, under the left thread. So that's the first two. The next pinhole, or the next pin that we're going to remove, that should have two separate loops on it. So let's see if we can zoom back in. And that will be for the next two passive pairs, making sure they're not twisted. So we want to separate the two loops. So there's the one on the left. Which will take the left-hand passive. And again, I won't tie that for the moment. And I want to find the loop on the right. Again, without trying not to lose my hook in the pillow. That's a determined little what's it. There we are. Let's play along. And again, if I zoom it out, we can then tie these off again the same way, a reef knot and a half. And finally, our last passive will sew off into that final loop there, which is probably the easiest one of the five. Again, reef knot and a half. So then we will be able to trim those ends close to the knot. Just lay those back for the time being. So the next video will be to do the wings and the head section. So we'll be starting here, working round, we'll be going into cross stitch and twist. There'll be the 2 pointed corners, which are done in the same way as these, and the head, and that will be in the next video.